Let me tell y'all something, because this situation right here has me clutching my wine glass and asking the Lord to explain how one of the greatest athletes in the world ended up getting played like a clearance violin in a pawn shop. And before anybody comes in here crying in the comments about y'all just mad because Claressa found love, baby, this is not about love. This is about strategy, opportunity, and a long game plan that has been playing out right under our noses while everybody was too busy screaming black love and reposting cute pictures on Instagram. Because the more you look at this mess, the more it becomes obvious that Claressa Shields didn't end up in this situation by accident. No, somebody drew up a whole playbook, rehearsed it, and executed it with precision. Now, first, let's start right where the internet got loud. Claressa was out here bragging that Papoose, yes, that Papoose, was the wealthiest man she had ever been with. She said, and I quote, she hasn't paid for a flight, a hotel, a purse, nothing. And she said it with her whole chest, too, like she just secured Jeff Bezos and had him paying her rent. Sis said, I don't know how long it's been since I paid for food. He takes care of everything. And while she was over there flexing like she found Big Daddy Warbucks, the rest of us were sitting here blinking real slow because we know damn well Pap has not seen commercial money like that since ringtone rap was a thing. So how exactly is Pap paying for all these flights, hotels, purses, and food? With what bag? With what revenue? From where? Child, come to find out, this was allegedly a scheme set up by Papoose and Remy all along, and the gag is, the end goal was always to position Claressa as the come-up, and they succeeded. No wonder Pap and Remy still legally married, because say what you want about Remy Ma, but that woman is not stupid. She knows exactly where the money flows. Claressa been out here throwing her full weight behind Papoose, telling everybody Pap was the first person to treat her right, to show up for her, to be consistent. But little did she know the only reason he was always available is because she was paying him to be, literally. And this ain't even new information. Remy herself already spilled that tea once upon a time, but nobody believed her because she has always been labeled as bitter, jealous, or messy. But Remy let it slip that Claressa was Pap's latest financial come-up, and she said it boldly because she knew most folks wouldn't believe her anyway. Now, fast forward, and Remy's words are aging like milk in the Arizona sun, because new receipts popping out left and right alleging that Pap has been digging in Claressa's pockets to clear his debts and will not stop until she has nothing left to give. Meanwhile, Claressa is online defending him like she getting paid salary for it. Oh, I'm never gonna stop talking about my man, she said. I just bought him his food, he upstairs. Girl, why are you buying the man's food if he's so rich? Why is Big Baller Poos upstairs waiting on plates like a toddler? Make it make sense. Claressa was arguing with the internet like the internet was gonna break up their relationship. Baby, the problem is not the internet, the problem is the IRS. Because after Remy and Pap went from black love goals to black love poisoning, Claressa became the new face in Pap's orbit, and suddenly her name has been attached to nothing but drama. Anytime you see her in the news, it's because she's going off on Instagram Live defending Pap, fussing with fans, or dragging some troll in the comments. And that right there is the first sign of a woman who has prioritized her man above her bag, her reputation, and her sanity. And you know it's bad because she should be celebrated as one of the most decorated athletes in modern sports. Two-time Olympic gold medalist, world champion boxer, the only boxer, male or female, to become undisputed in 4 weight divisions. That's history. And she's not just good, she's undisputed. She has a movie made about her called Fire Inside. But do people talk about that? No, they talk about Pap. And listen, I don't care how much talent you have. If you don't guard your circle, somebody is going to see that vulnerability and step in to monetize it. And baby Papoose stepped in with the speed of a Visa card at Christmas. Claressa has been getting him on stages, arenas, boxing events, packed stadiums. This man has not had this much visibility in over a decade. And while hip-hop respects his pen, commercially he is not moving units. Labels not calling, promoters not checking. But with Claressa, he suddenly has value again. People seeing his name in press releases. He's at podiums giving speeches about business synergy and artist empowerment like he graduated from Harvard. And the public ate it up because Claressa co-signed him.
Now, here's where the teapot starts whistling. Claressa out here bragging that Papoose got her an $8 million multi-fight partnership between Solita Promotions and Win Records. Let's pause. Win Records is a record label, not a boxing promotion company. They have never signed an athlete before. Their roster is literally Pap. So when Claressa became the first athlete they ever brought in, the whole label is now depending on her to eat. And then there's Solita Promotions, the boxing side, who's also taking their cut. So Claressa basically signed herself into one of those infamous 360 deals that artists used to cry about in the 2000s. And what happens with 360 deals? The artist does all the work while everybody else gets a cut, until you're sitting there wondering why you're world famous with no money in your account. And who made the deal happen? Papoose. Who gets commission for bringing her in? Papoose. Who now works as her manager and promoter? Papoose. Who gets paid whether she fights, raps, signs an endorsement, or breathes in the direction of a camera? Papoose. This man got so many financial tentacles attached to Claressa's earnings, he could be a damn octopus with a W-2. And it doesn't stop there, because the street's been whispering that the money coming from Claressa is exactly what Pap is using to fund his lifestyle and clean up his messy tax situation. And baby, when I tell you those tax receipts are not light, I mean not 1, not 2, not 5, but allegedly over 12 years of unpaid taxes totaling over $300,000. And Remy Ma allegedly owes over $600,000 herself. Baby, that is almost $1 million in IRS debt. And don't nobody want smoke with the IRS. Those folks do not forget. They do not get tired. They do not take a break. They do not lose interest. They will follow you into your grave, stand at your funeral, and collect from the flowers. So what do two married rappers with $1 million tax situation do? They find someone with a steady bag to attach themselves to. And Claressa has the bag. Claressa is the bag. Claressa is the ATM. Claressa is the IRS repayment plan. And Remy sitting over there comfortable because even if Pap and Claressa break up, Remy still benefits because that divorce never finalized. And as long as they married, the IRS can still come collect from Claressa's bag indirectly because Pap's assets and debts are tied to Remy and Remy's debts tied to Pap. It's a circle of financial parasitism and Claressa sitting in the middle like a piñata at a birthday party. Now it gets darker. Claressa's childhood friend came out with disturbing stories about her being taken advantage of as a child athlete, being exploited by coaches, getting pregnant young, and being manipulated at a time when she had no protection. That kind of trauma doesn't just vanish. It creates vulnerability. It creates trust gaps. It creates emotional blind spots. And when you combine that with years of getting punched in the head, baby, listen, I'm not trying to be funny, but boxing causes cognitive decline. Medical journals have been proving that for decades. So if you were already vulnerable from childhood exploitation, and now you add brain trauma and insecurity and a craving for validation, baby, you are the perfect target for somebody who has bills, debts, and a failing career. Papoose saw Claressa's insecurities and did not hesitate. He slid right into the support role, the caretaker role, the I believe in you role, the I never had a woman like you role, and Claressa ate it up because she never had that before. Meanwhile, the audience saw a love story. The T crowd saw a predator wearing a tracksuit, and Remy already told us the pattern. She said Pap was broke when she was in jail and she had to put everything in his name just to make him look like the stable black husband. He ate off her name for years, and now he's doing the same with Claressa. Claressa is shouting it wouldn't have been possible without Papoose every time she gets a new deal. Girl, exactly, that's the point. That deal wouldn't have happened without Pap because Pap negotiated it to feed Pap. And the most tragic part? Claressa thinks this is love. She thinks this is partnership. She thinks this is loyalty, when really it's strategy.
However, for years, Claressa spoke openly and proudly about Papoose, praising him in a way that made him sound like the first man to ever truly value her. She described him as someone who treated her with respect, kindness, and loyalty during a time when she was surrounded by people who either exploited her talent, underestimated her value, or simply didn't care about her well-being. She repeatedly emphasized how different he was from other men, calling him a provider, a protector, and a true partner. In her own words, Papoose is the wealthiest man that I've been with. I haven't paid for a flight, a hotel, a purse, nothing. I don't know how long, food. He takes care of everything. To Claressa, this was evidence of loyalty, proof that Papoose did things for her without expecting anything in return. On the surface, it looked like pure love. It looked like partnership. And to many viewers online, it looked like the kind of emotional support Claressa genuinely deserved after years of being overlooked and underestimated. But as time passed, a different narrative began to emerge. A narrative that suggested that the support she thought was generosity may have actually been business disguised as affection. According to people familiar with the situation, Papoose's involvement with Claressa was not driven by romance, but strategy. Not by love, but by opportunity. And instead of investing into Claressa as a partner, it's alleged that he was withdrawing from her, quietly, steadily, and repeatedly, both emotionally and financially. When rumors of Papoose and Claressa's relationship began surfacing, Remy Ma acted unfazed publicly, even dismissive. At one point, she even referred to Claressa as Papoose's come-up, implying that his connection to her was a step toward financial gain rather than a romantic choice. At the time, her comments sounded like jokes, sarcasm, shade, petty entertainment. But now, those same comments are being replayed with a different tone. They sound less like insults and more like warnings from someone who had already lived through the same pattern. Years earlier, Remy hinted that she was the one who financially held Papoose down during their relationship, especially while she was in prison. She claimed she put everything in his name, only to come home and find herself carrying the financial load again, while he collected the praise for being a loyal black man who held it down. If that is true, then the financial dynamic between Papoose and Claressa is not new. It may simply be repeating. New claims suggest that Papoose had been taking money from Claressa to deal with long-standing financial obligations, including debts he reportedly could not manage on his own. What makes this more alarming is the claim that this was not a one-time incident. Instead, sources say it developed into a long-term pattern, one that allegedly continues today. Observers argue that as long as Claressa remains loyal to him, publicly defends him, and positions him as a central figure in her life, he will continue accessing her resources, her influence, and her revenue streams. For Claressa, this creates a risk of being financially drained while believing she is being emotionally supported. If this pattern continues unchecked, Claressa may find herself in the same financial situation artists and athletes have faced for decades, surrounded by people who benefit from their success while they are the ones doing the labor, taking the risk, and absorbing the consequences. As the relationship rumors intensified, Claressa's personal brand began changing. She was no longer trending solely for being a boxing phenomenon. She was trending for drama. Every time she surfaced online, it was either defending Papoose, reacting to rumors, or inserting herself into conversations that had nothing to do with boxing. Meanwhile, the world began forgetting who she was outside of the mess. And that is where the tragedy begins. Because Claressa Shields is not just a famous name, she is a historical figure. She is one of the most accomplished female fighters in the history of combat sports, a multi-division world champion, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, the only boxer, male or female, to become undisputed in 4 different weight classes, while holding titles across as many as 5 divisions. Her life story was powerful enough to be turned into a film titled The Fire Inside, starring Ryan Destiny. This level of achievement puts her in a lane few athletes ever reach. Yet, despite all of that, the internet seemed more interested in Papoose, Remy, and gossip. And whether Claressa realizes it or not, this shift benefited Papoose tremendously. Through her, he gained visibility he had not had in over a decade. Suddenly, he was performing at arenas and events that he could never fill on his own, even during his peak music years. Claressa was not just a partner, she was a platform.
Behind the scenes, Papoose elevated Claressa even further. She began describing him not only as her man, but as her manager and boxing promoter, and she credited him with one of the biggest business deals of her career, an $8 million multi-fight contract involving Salida Promotions and Win Records.
The problem wasn't Salida Promotions. They are a legitimate boxing promotion entity responsible for negotiating fights, organizing arenas, handling broadcasting rights, and managing the commercial side of the sport. The red flag was Win Records. Win Records is not a boxing company. It is a music management label led by Papoose, where he serves as the leading artist and head of the hip-hop division. Claressa was the first athlete they had ever signed, which raised immediate questions about why a boxer would enter into a management arrangement with a music label. Management labels typically control branding, appearances, endorsements, and media obligations. They also take 10 to 20% of earnings from everything their talent does. Promotions take their own percentage as well. That means Claressa surrounded herself with multiple layers of middlemen, each extracting revenue before she ever sees the bulk of her earnings. The structure resembles a 360 deal, the kind artists have been complaining about for the last 20 years. In a true 360 deal, the artist performs, creates, and risks, while the label quietly collects from every direction. So the question became, why would the most dominant female boxer of her generation agree to a deal that resembles something meant for a struggling rapper? Industry insiders believe the answer is simple: Papoose orchestrated it. During the announcement, Claressa openly stated the deal wouldn't have happened without him. She praised him publicly, celebrated his role, and positioned him as the driving force behind the entire arrangement. That alone confirmed that his influence was not emotional, it was financial. Once the financial documents began circulating online, things became even more suspicious. Reports surfaced alleging that Papoose had not paid taxes in 13 years and owed more than $300,000 to the IRS. Meanwhile, Remy Ma allegedly owed over $600,000 in tax debts herself. Combined, their financial obligations are rumored to exceed $1 million. And here is where the situation becomes strategic. Despite the public theatrics, Remy Ma and Papoose are still legally married. The divorce, although filed, has not been finalized. Remy has reportedly stepped away from it completely. If the two are still married, then Papoose's financial obligations are tied to her and hers tied to him. That means resolving his tax burden could indirectly resolve hers as well. But what makes it even more concerning for Claressa is this: even if she walks away from Papoose, he continues to profit. The deal with Win Records does not disappear. The commissions remain, the contracts remain, the percentages remain. If she becomes a rapper, he profits. If she continues boxing, he profits. If she partners, endorses, or signs new opportunities, he profits. It's a revenue model that runs no matter what she does and no matter how the relationship changes. Observers online argue that Claressa's vulnerability is not random, it is patterned. From childhood, she was surrounded by figures who exploited her talent, controlled her environment, or took advantage of her emotional attachment. Childhood allegations from people close to her described troubling stories involving coaches, pregnancies, and exploitation at a young age. That creates a psychological foundation where loyalty is mistaken for love and attachment is mistaken for safety. Boxing itself can also affect cognition. Years of head trauma combined with emotional trauma often make judgment, trust, and long-term planning more difficult. This does not make Claressa weak. It makes her human in a system that profits from strong bodies and vulnerable minds. Right now, the internet is divided. Some believe Claressa is in love and knows exactly what she is doing. Others believe she is being manipulated by a man who sees her as a business model. And then there are those who believe Remy Ma and Papoose are still working as a unit behind the scenes, using divorce rumors as a distraction while both benefit from Claressa's revenue streams. Claressa is the type of person who would literally fight a whole stadium of people to defend Pap, and the internet is praying that one day she wakes up before she has nothing left, because right now, both Remy and Pap winning regardless. If Pap stays, he gets the bag. If Pap leaves, he still gets the bag. If Claressa becomes a rapper, guess who gets a cut? Pap. If Claressa does endorsements, guess who gets a cut? Pap. If Claressa signs fights, guess who gets a cut? Pap. It's like watching a one-woman stimulus package. And listen, I want Claressa to find real love, real support, real emotional safety. But baby, the signs are there. She's insecure, she's loud, she's defensive, she's obsessed with proving she's loved. And that is exactly the kind of woman who gets preyed on by men with financial deficits. This whole situation is sad because Claressa is a world-class athlete and a cultural treasure. But she is also a human being with wounds, and the predators can smell those wounds from a mile away. But what do y'all think? Is Claressa being played? Is Pap the mastermind? Is Remy involved? Because one thing about it and two things for sure, the internet is connecting the dots. And baby, when the internet starts doing math, somebody about to get exposed. Leave your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and make sure you subscribe because baby, we got more tea to spill, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye, Patties!